What is that?
This looks like it's part of a tool.
Is it?
Yeah.
We have sought to find irrefutable proof of men working in the money pit at depth.
What if the treasure was never taken? What if every searcher who walked away from Oak Island empty-handed was not failing to find something that was gone, but failing to reach something that was still there? What if the artifacts buried in this island's soil have been telling us that truth all along, and we simply did not have enough of them in the right places to hear what they were saying? Until now. Season 13, Episode 17 of The Curse of Oak Island is the episode that changes the conversation from where is the treasure to why is it still here. Because the ancient artifacts surfacing in this installment do not just point toward buried wealth. They confirm, through their age, their origin, and their deliberate placement, that whatever was hidden on this island was hidden to stay. That the people who built this underground system did not come back for it. That it has been sitting down there, undisturbed, through every failed excavation attempt, every collapsed shaft, every flooded tunnel, waiting. Welcome back, everyone. Episode 17 is the kind of installment that rewards every viewer who stayed patient through the slower moments of this season. Because patience is exactly what this island demands, and exactly what it is now beginning to repay. We are going to break down every major artifact discovery in this episode. What each one tells us about the age and origin of Oak Island's mystery, why researchers are now using the word confirmation rather than suggestion, and what the cumulative weight of these finds means for everything the team does next. The treasure was never removed. The artifacts prove it. Let us talk about why artifacts matter more than gold. Before we get into the specific discoveries of episode 17, I want to take a moment to talk about something that often gets lost in the excitement of Oak Island coverage. Why ancient artifacts are actually more important than finding gold. Think about it this way. If the team pulled a chest of gold coins from the T1 shaft tomorrow, it would be spectacular. It would be historically significant. It would end the treasure hunting debate once and for all. But it would not necessarily tell us who put it there, when they put it there, why they chose this island, or what the full scope of what they buried actually is. Gold is confirmation of presence. Artifacts are confirmation of identity, and identity is what unlocks everything else. An artifact, a tool, a religious object, a piece of worked metal, a fragment of material with a datable origin, carries information that gold alone cannot provide. It tells you what era the deposit belongs to. It tells you what culture was responsible. It tells you what purpose the people who came here were serving. And most critically for the Oak Island investigation, it tells you whether the deposit was ever accessed again after it was sealed. This last point is what makes episode 17 so significant. The artifacts emerging from the dig in this episode are not just old. They are undisturbed. They carry the characteristics of objects that have been in place continuously since they were first deposited. No evidence of removal, no evidence of disturbance, no evidence that anyone has touched them since the original builders sealed this system shut. That is not just an interesting detail. That is definitive proof that whatever lies beneath Oak Island has never been retrieved. The treasure was never removed. The artifacts are the evidence. The first discovery, a tool from another century. The first major artifact discovery in episode 17 emerges from the continuing excavation work in the T1 shaft, and it arrives with the kind of quiet significance that the best Oak Island discoveries always carry. Not dramatic on first glance, devastating on reflection. What comes up is a tool, a worked piece of metal shaped for a specific purpose, bearing the marks of craftsmanship that is immediately recognizable to anyone familiar with pre-modern metalworking. The edges are deliberate. The form is functional. This was not decorative. This was made to be used, and used hard, at depth, in conditions that required a robust and carefully constructed instrument. The preliminary assessment places its likely origin in the medieval to early Renaissance period, somewhere between the 13th and 16th centuries, an era that places it firmly outside the range of any colonial or post-colonial explanation. This was not left by someone in the 1700s. This was not accidentally dropped by a relatively modern searcher whose equipment became lodged in the sediment. This tool predates European colonial presence in Nova Scotia by a margin that is historically verifiable and scientifically testable. But here is what makes this find particularly powerful in the context of Episode 17's central argument. The tool was found in a sealed sediment layer, undisturbed, surrounded by material consistent with centuries of uninterrupted deposition. There are no signs of the layer having been opened and resealed, no evidence of later intrusion. The tool has been in that position since whoever carried it down there left it behind. And they left it behind because they sealed the structure and never came back. When the team processes this implication, the atmosphere in the room shifts noticeably, because a tool left behind at depth in a sealed layer is not just an artifact, it is a message. It says, "We were here, we built something, and we did not return. Whatever we were protecting is still here. We left part of our own equipment as proof." The second discovery, worked metal with medieval signatures. The second major artifact discovery in Episode 17 builds on the first and deepens the historical argument in ways that are difficult to overstate. Because if the first find established the era, the second find begins to establish the identity. Emerging from the careful processing of material brought up by the airlift system is a piece of worked non-ferrous metal, not raw ore, not a geological deposit of naturally occurring copper or bronze. Worked metal, metal that has been deliberately shaped, treated, and formed into something specific by human hands, applying human knowledge and human tools. The working shows sophistication. The composition, under preliminary analysis, is consistent with metallurgical practices associated with medieval European craftsmanship. The excitement in the room when this piece is identified is genuine and immediate. One team member, unable to contain the historical weight of the moment, puts it plainly. This is medieval. This is from the medieval period. And that single statement carries enormous implications for everything the Oak Island investigation has been building toward. Medieval European metalwork found at significant depth in a sealed underground structure on an island off the coast of Nova Scotia is not explainable by accident. It is not the result of geological processes. It is not contamination from a more recent era. It is the fingerprint of a specific group of people operating in a specific historical window who came to this island with materials and knowledge from the old world and used them to build something meant to last indefinitely. The Knights Templar connection, long one of the most discussed theories in Oak Island circles, suddenly feels less like speculation and more like a legitimate historical hypothesis that the physical evidence is beginning to support. The Templars were dissolved in the early 14th century. Their treasury famously disappeared. They had access to exactly this kind of metallurgical expertise, and they had every reason to find a remote, defensible location to hide something they desperately needed to protect. Is this their work? Episode 17 does not make that definitive claim, but the medieval metal in the team's hands makes the question impossible to dismiss. The sealed layers, scientific proof of continuous deposit. Now let us talk about what may actually be the most scientifically significant aspect of episode 17, because it is the piece of the episode that most directly supports the central argument of this script's title. The ancient artifacts confirm the treasure was never removed, and the evidence for that confirmation is not just the artifacts themselves. It is the geological context surrounding them. Throughout the excavation work documented in this episode, the team's geological consultants and scientific advisors are paying close attention to something that might seem technical but is absolutely critical: the stratigraphy of the sediment layers around each artifact find. Stratigraphy is the study of rock and soil layers. It tells you, with considerable precision, whether a deposit has been disturbed since it was first laid down. Undisturbed layers have a consistency, a density, and a chemical profile that is measurably different from layers that have been opened, altered, and resealed. And what the stratigraphy around the episode 17 artifact finds, shows consistently and clearly, is undisturbed deposition. These layers have not been opened. These artifacts have not been accessed. The sealed structure encountered at depth has maintained its integrity across centuries of geological pressure, tidal activity, and the repeated and repeatedly failed excavation attempts of every searcher who came before the Lagina team. This is the scientific confirmation of what the artifacts suggest historically. The people who built this underground system sealed it, left it, and never returned. Every flood tunnel, every collapsed shaft, every frustrated 19th century excavation team pumping water in futile circles. None of them reached what is down there, because it is still there, sealed in layers that the science confirms have not been disturbed since they were first laid down centuries ago. When Rick Lagina processes this information, when the geological data is explained to him in terms that translate the science into its historical meaning, his reaction is quiet and profound. This is what he has always said was possible, not hoped, believed. And the stratigraphy is now saying he was right. What these artifacts collectively tell us. Step back from any individual artifact in episode 17 and look at what they say together, because the cumulative argument they make is significantly more powerful than any single find in isolation. You have a working tool from the medieval to early Renaissance period, found in an undisturbed sealed layer. You have worked non-ferrous metal with medieval European metallurgical signatures, found at significant depth in a man-made void. You have stratigraphy confirming continuous, undisturbed deposition across the centuries, separating us from whoever placed these objects where they were found. And you have all of this sitting within the context of a broader season that has already produced a possible 1500s-era pickaxe, a cobblestone road with a deliberate directional turn, stone structures with precise engineering, and a sealed underground chamber accessed for the first time at 100 feet. Individually, each of these could theoretically be argued with. Together, they form a narrative that is essentially airtight. Someone was on this island before the official historical record places anyone here. They came with sophisticated tools, advanced metallurgical knowledge, and the engineering capability to build an underground system of remarkable complexity and durability. They sealed what they built with every technical resource available to them, and they never came back to retrieve it. The treasure, whatever form it takes, whatever its historical origin, has been sitting beneath Oak Island continuously since the day it was placed there. Every searcher who failed was not failing because the treasure had been removed and they were chasing a ghost. They were failing because the engineering protecting it was simply better than the tools they brought to defeat it. The treasure outlasted them. It outlasted all of them. Until now. For the broader Oak Island mythology, Episode 17 represents a fundamental shift in the nature of the investigation. It stops being a treasure hunt and starts being an archaeological excavation of a historically significant site. The artifacts demand that level of serious, methodical, scientifically rigorous attention. And the Lagina team, with 13 seasons of accumulated knowledge and an approach that has always prioritized understanding over rushing, is exactly the right team to give it that attention. The road ahead. What confirmation changes? So what does Episode 17 change? What does artifact confirmation, real, scientific, stratigraphically supported confirmation, do to the Oak Island investigation going forward? It changes everything about how the work is approached. When you are searching for something that might be there, you operate under the constant pressure of doubt. Every setback raises the possibility that there is nothing to find and never was. Every failed drill attempt, every collapsed shaft, every flooded excavation carries the weight of the question. Are we chasing something real? That doubt has shadowed Oak Island for over 2 centuries. It has broken teams, drained fortunes, and ended careers. Episode 17 removes that doubt permanently. The artifacts confirm the deposit is real. The stratigraphy confirms it has never been disturbed. The sealed structure at depth confirms that the engineering protecting it is still intact. From this point forward, the investigation is not a search. It is an excavation of something known to exist. That is a completely different psychological and operational reality, and it is one that should finally attract the broader historical and archaeological community that has kept its professional distance from Oak Island for fear of association with what it perceived as fringe treasure hunting. This is no longer fringe. Episode 17 makes that case with physical evidence that the scientific community will find very difficult to ignore. And when that community engages, when archaeologists and historians bring their full expertise and resources to bear on what the Lagina team has uncovered, the pace and depth of discovery will accelerate in ways that no previous era of Oak Island investigation could match. The treasure was never removed. The artifacts confirm it. And now that confirmation is in hand, the only direction left is down. Outro: 200 years of searching, 13 seasons of television, countless theories, countless failures, countless moments where hope almost gave way entirely. And in Season 13, Episode 17, a collection of ancient artifacts from sealed, undisturbed layers at depth on Oak Island delivers the verdict that every one of those searchers was working toward without quite reaching. It was never removed. It was always there. It is still there now. The ancient tools and worked metals of Episode 17 are not just historically fascinating objects. They are proof. They are the island finally speaking clearly, in a language that science can verify and history can contextualize, about what it has been holding and how long it has been holding it. For Rick and Marty Lagina, for the Fellowship of the Dig, and for every viewer who has spent years investing belief in this mystery, Episode 17 is not a conclusion. It is a confirmation. And confirmation, after this long, after this much, feels like everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think the artifacts belong to? Do you believe the Templar connection is real? And now that the treasure is confirmed, still in place, what do you think the team finds next? Until next time, Oak Island has been keeping its secret for centuries. Episode 17 is the moment it finally admitted the secret exists.